Hello, good evening, and welcome to Rail Natter, everyone. Oh my goodness. I'm just going to immediately enlarge my face just to check. Is this working? It is working. I think so. Oh, YouTube, having a bit of a grump. Anyway, enough of that. It's Rail Natter. Good evening, everyone. Yes. Hi. Yeah, I'm here. We're here to talk, well, way back in episode, what is this, episode 275. We're way back in episode 31. We did the level boarding episode. It's an incredibly important Rail Natter episode. And when would it have been? Episode 31 would have been towards the end of, like, back end of 2020. We'd had 2 years, I think, of the campaign for level boarding. More on that in a second. And now we are an additional 5 years on from that. And it's a good time for us to revisit some of those themes in what's going to be a bit of a rapid-fire episode, I think. Not least because of the little one being throwing up and such. Anyway, I digress. I must focus and tell you what's happening. Partly prompted by this report coming out, actually, by NCAT, the National Centre for Accessible Transport, coming up with a kind of it's a useful report that this is next week. We'll go through that next week, but it prompted me to think about what we're going to be doing. Basically prompted me to think, well, where are we at with progress on this particular theme? And what is it? Where have we got to in terms of, have we won the pitched battle between policy and actually let's just think about how sometimes we win. Of course, Patreon is what allows me to keep doing this stuff. So if you're a patron supporter at £5 and above, you get the bonus episode, which will be coming out tonight. More on that in a second. And you get all sorts of other things like advance warning of events, and of which I had one today. It was down in. It's been a calamity, which is why I'm so far behind on Rail Natter and everything. I had to drive instead of getting the train because of a bike puncture and forgetting bike locks. It's great. We're doing great. Anyway, patreon.com/GarethNense is where you want to go for that. It'd be a delight to have you, and you allow this delight, this glory, this highly professional production to continue ad infinitum. Without further ado, everyone, welcome to tonight's Rail Natter. And as the Intercity 225 fades away, yes, the video title says 274 because I forgot to update it to 275. We'll get there. Update it I have the technology to update that as we speak, which I intend to do. First, though, so one of the key things that prompted me to think we might be over the hill on this, getting straight to it while I edit the video title 275 save. There we go. One of the things that I decided meant I think we're over the hill on this one was the ScotRail Suburban Fleet announcement, the contract sort of the kind of the market engagement announcement, followed by a few press releases. There have been discussions about ScotRail, including, well, I tell you what, within this there was a key feature within here which I wanted to just highlight, which was it is hoped. They've got their get out of jail free card. It is hoped that the new proposed replacement fleet will offer enhanced accessibility, increased provision for cycles and wheelchairs, family-friendly interior layouts, and a comfortable journey achieved through good high quality and seating. So that's interesting. What's the key? Oh, wait a minute. Have I gone and I bet I've copied and pasted the wrong. Let me just get the thing in here. Let's just bring this over because I think that's the short description. What I want is the description of procurement. Yes, it is. Because your host is a genius, if I press Control F and level, there we are, that's what I wanted. There we go, look at this. So this is the important bit that I, wait a minute, watch this, watch me work my magic. Here we are. The key thing that we're looking for is to put that there. Am I editing this on the fly? Yes, that's correct. I am. Yeah. Because this is important. There we are. Oh, now I can come back here and I can go press E. What's fun? This has been one of those days. Did I copy a bit that doesn't actually have the words level access boarding in it? Probably. So I'm just going to put the Word document up there, put the thing up here, and go level. There we are, level access boarding. There, fine. That's the thing. This is the key part. No, it is there. Fine. The new trains are anticipated to include a low floor design, explicitly stated low floor design, to enable level access boarding. This is the key point. I got there in the end, everyone. We're all good. Sorry, James. The key thing that was in the procurement documentation, just to make your edit really difficult, is that line. The new trains are anticipated, there's their get out of jail free card, the new trains are anticipated to include a low floor design to enable level access boarding at external passenger doors. That is massive. This is an explicit statement that the trains shall be level boarding capable. And even more explicitly, low floor design. That language is important on a number of levels. It's important because it shows that the procurement is basically written with the intention that level boarding will be delivered as per current level boarding solutions. So it's not reinventing the wheel. It's saying, we know how this works now, and we want our trains to do that. And it has also been written by someone who knows what they're talking about, because they're saying things like low floor design. They are saying level access. They've said level access boarding because it's slightly less jargon than level boarding, but that's saying level boarding. This is brilliant. This is exactly what we were hoping would happen. And it got me thinking, is this it? Are we through? Are we over the hill? Because I was so disheartened when CAF got the deal to deliver the LNER trains without any level boarding provision whatsoever. So disappointed in that. And in a way, this shows, well, it shows a number of things. It shows what can happen with a single state entity with a driving towards, once again, by the way, it's a well-informed, strong public client that is driving this forward rather than the private sector, which is exciting. Greater Anglia delivered level boarding, but partially, not as a full solution. And I wanted to just pick up on where this means we're at, what the work that has gone on to actually enable this to happen, because this has been achieved because of the campaign for level boarding. This has been achieved because of the work that has been done by the people in this campaign. It's amazing because as a campaign itself, we don't do much in the way of targeted, this is us, the campaign for level boarding. What we are, and what's most effective about us, and this is what's useful in this discussion, is how can people do this for other themes, what the campaign for level boarding has done, and what we exist as. If you remember, I'll talk maybe in a minute about where it came from. And tell you what, let's go big face. Let's get my enormous face up on screen. Hello, everyone. So, the campaign for level boarding. What is it? It is and was and continues to be a couple of WhatsApp groups with focused and slightly with a steering group and then a broader. Everyone can join this group. And what we do is connect people with different experiences, different knowledge, different geographical presence, different connections, different networks. And we tap into, and there are several very active members as part of that who tie into, projects that are being run on a local level, related to stations, related to new trains, related to community rail partnerships, relating to train operating companies going, oh, we're going to have this accessibility outreach. What could we do better? What do you want us to do about the new trains? Too many to name names, but there are several key players in that who are regularly attending and pushing on these issues with the likes of Northern Transpennine Express in particular, and likewise people doing the same in the south, ensuring that, so this group, we respond to consultations, we share around best knowledge, best practice, we respond to government kind of policy statements, we respond to kind of lots of these things behind the scenes, we apply pressure behind the scenes with our various contacts and links, and we have engineers like me who actually make sure that we are double checking, firstly, making sure that everything we're saying holds up and makes sense. But frankly, everyone in that group knows the detail inside and out. Actually, where I'm useful is if it just needs that extra, if we're getting a response from, say, government or from a train operator, it's allowing me to just dig into those details a little bit and go, yep, fair enough, that is a challenge, I understand that, or that's bullshit. That's just rubbish. And here's why. So it's the fact that we've got this and we've planted ourselves. We have government access through having members. We have a baroness in our ranks. We have got other members. We've got active parts of people who work in the parliamentary estate, whether as politicians or as civil servants. We are a broad network, and we have achieved the campaign has achieved this sort of shift. We'll get into exactly how much of a shift it is momentarily, but we have achieved this shift. What I think is we've won the battle. We're over the hill in terms of getting this out there. We've achieved this through that effort. And it started in a pumpkin cafe in Darlington in 2018 with myself and Tanny Gray Thompson having a chat about this, and then reaching out to some of our friends and colleagues to create. We met down in Parliament and grew and grew and grew. And despite lots of challenges like Brexit, and which was stealing all of the oxygen out of both parliamentary and civil service time, and then COVID, which atomized everything. Despite those, meaning that we didn't get an APPG set up, an all-party parliamentary group, which was our intention to have one of those dedicated to level boarding. Despite not having those, we have achieved this through the concerted efforts of particularly Doug and Tony, but others as well. I wouldn't want to go into too much detail on names, but those people watching this, you know who you are. So, the campaign. You can continue to support the campaign, reach out. We would love to do more social stuff, but we're limited time, and we're very good at targeting our efforts, as you can see. So that's good. But so it got me thinking. Right back to episode 31. Here it is, old Natter style. I thought, what I need to do a new thumbnail for this, don't I? I thought, let's go through the 3 things we concluded you needed to do to achieve level boarding, and understand where we're at with them. That's the key. That's the key thing that I think would be useful to do, to go back to that episode. You can go back to that episode to pick up the details, but let's pick through the 3 things that were the mission, as it were, and understand where we're at with them all. Before we do that, though, I want to just grab a bit of a little bit of a reminder before we do that. A little bit of a reminder of why do we do this? Why is level boarding important? Level boarding is important, firstly, because the biggest safety hazard on our railways is the interface between the train and the platform edge. By far the biggest safety risk. It's got worse year on year for a few years now. This is not good. We want to make it, well, not a few years, a long number of years, so it's getting worse, not better. As we have a more congested railway, that risk goes up without other controls being applied. So that's absolutely a key feature of safety. The second is actually you have a higher capacity railway if you have level boarding, because people can get on and off the train more quickly. Not just disabled people, but anyone can get on and off the train more quickly. Everyone, in fact, not everyone gets on and off the train more quickly, which means your dwell time can be reduced, which means that you can run more trains per hour, which means you have a higher capacity railway. You get rid of yet another one of the bottlenecks. And in some places, people getting on and off trains is absolutely the bottleneck in terms of capacity on a line. So if you have level boarding, you can increase the capacity of railway. But the third one, of course, the big why is really key, and I think I wanted to dwell on the why of this, in particular, referring to a zine that's been pulled together by Richard Am and the Disability Arc, which is a very useful knowledge sharing group, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. But I think the key thing, the why do step-free boarding, in theory, according to some calculations that Richard's kind of tallied up, it could generate, I'm like with economic numbers, these are always kind of, whatever. Generate potentially 73 billion quid for the UK economy at a cost of only about 6 billion. Even, there is, all the injuries and harm we've caused. Crucially, there are 14 million disabled people in the UK. And the most common barrier to them working, if they want to work, if they're able to work, is transport. Is the fact that they are. I absolutely believe in the fact that disability is about the environment around you, and people being disabled by their environment. And the railways are a key part of that environment, and are a key source of that, causing people to be disabled. Ramped boarding fails at a rate of 15%. So that's when you book access, it will fail 15% of times. Hopeless. Absolutely hopeless. And there are savings to staff having to carry the heavy lifts. There are savings to having all this lift, the sort of the ramps, all on stations and all that sort of stuff. You don't need to set the ramp up to get the catering trolley on the train. All this sorts of stuff where it's very, very useful to get rid of those ramps altogether. So there are key reasons why this is so important. Michael C is asking if I'll be mentioning the HS2 platform edge doors in this new segment. No, I won't. Has that come out, Michael? You have to come and shout at me about that. The news is very quick on this one. I have so much backlog of news. I'll be going through it at some point soon. Anyway, so the key kind of features that I think are really important to pick up. I think what I wanted to do next is go through each of those sort of the sort of targets we were aiming for and see where we've got with them. So, The first of these is using the standards that we already have. Where are we at with the standards that we already have now in terms of delivering level boarding? And the reality is on this one, I think we will avoid repeating the mistakes that we did for Crossrail. I don't think we'll see a new bit of suburban railway have high platforms ever again. So in a way, I expect that we saw that. HS2 is kind of ship has sailed in that one, although kind of has it. But yeah, so that, in a way, yes, but also we haven't got rid of some of those grandfather rights. We haven't changed and updated the standards to say, thou shalt do this, rather than, well, try and achieve this. So there's more to be done on this one. The next one, buy trains that actually fit that standard. Well, although this is still, we're not perfect on this front, there are new fleets being procured at the moment that aren't achieving this. I think we're going to see a situation where from this point now, it's going to be extremely difficult for any train operator to justify a new fleet that isn't low floored and level boarding capable. Extremely difficult, as in a fleet that's procured from this point onwards. And that's a massive win. That is a huge win, because the last thing we can manage is to be procuring trains now that will be in operation in 2065 potentially that don't provide level boarding. So, that is the case for the trains that are going to be appearing over the next 5 years that still don't have it. They're going to be they're going to be functioning in the 2060s and will be a problem. So you can see how it's the trains that are the main challenge in this one, not the infrastructure. My view would be that we scrap non-level boarding capable trains as quickly as we possibly can once we start getting a higher rate of new trade procurement, because frankly it's not good enough in this day and age that we don't achieve that. So that is number two, and I think this is the one where we can really strike a tick for a massive success and win on behalf of everyone who's pushed this. And the third one is the rolling program. Starting a rolling program of platform corrections, and we are as far from this now as we were in 2020, unfortunately, if not further. Very frustrating. If you remember, there was supposed to be an audit of platforms, an audit of train infrastructure, of railway infrastructure against this. We've yet to see that. Where's that gone? Where is that? Where is the audit of what infrastructure upgrades would be needed? We saw a couple of AFA stations confirmed in the recent budget announcements, but certainly not a rolling program of AFA either. Of course, Access for All is about getting from street to platform with fully step free. But it doesn't get you from the platform onto the train. And level boarding, likewise, is about getting from the train to the platform and vice versa. It doesn't deal with getting from the platform out to the rest of the world, onto the street, as it were. You kind of need both to work. But equally, one can't happen with the other, and you can't wait for one without the other. You need both to be happening. So they're two separate battles to be fought in parallel with each other. AFA is a whole other series of episodes, frankly. But on this one, it's less successful. I think the key thing, though, is that the time-consuming bit, the long lead items, which are trains, we've kind of won that battle. It's exciting. So, the conversations I was having with Tanny Gray-Thompson back in, the 2017, 2018, Merseyrail have those trains running now. The fleet that's very similar, based on the same platform, having some issues with its gap fillers, with some strengthening required above those from all the crush loading from the Great North Run recently. The 555s running on Tyne-Wear Metro, more and more of them appearing. We're absolutely getting there. We are getting there. And it's, the campaign for level boarding is not the only pressure that's been applied, but I think it's one of those situations where the network that this created has absolutely had the effect for people to be using that language, level boarding, low floor trains. That's language I've been using. That's language that others have been using. That's language that the campaign has been using, that I wrote in FAQs such a long time ago. It's a victory, and it just shows what you can achieve if you set those networks up properly, those networks of the right people. And those networks have to include they can't just be engineers, they have to be people who are living the problem, who don't necessarily even give a stuff about trains. It's really, really key. Yes, the 555s do have gap fillers, Michael C. Yes, they do. So, let's make my face large briefly while I work out what's going on. Final recommendations of the Marchioness disaster report are only just being implemented now this year. Gareth, good grief. Alex Evans, it almost feels like the solution is just buy Stadler until other manufacturers get their act together. Well, what's going to be very interesting about this is to see who steps up to the plate, as it were, to deliver a level boarding solution. Alstom/Bombardier, Allstardier, whatever they're called now, they do have a level boarding solution that they did not launch at the Greatest Gathering, strangely enough. But their intention is that they will bring the Dart platform, the platform they've been using for the new Dart fleet, over to the UK, and that'll be the basis, and that's a low-floor train. So that's Alstom. The other manufacturers, CAF, absolutely no intention at this point of delivering a level boarding solution, a low-floor solution. Hitachi, my understanding, no interest in providing a low-floor solution, which then leaves Stadler, Alstom, and Siemens. Siemens do have a low-floor solution that they are intending to roll out. It'd be interesting to see exactly what that looks like, though, because for those who aren't Stadler, it's an interesting challenge, because Stadler rely on Jacobs bogies to deliver their solution. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. So what else here? There's been no official announcement yet, but as you posted on Twitter Blue Sky, the tender has been abandoned, which is pretty telling. Oh, yeah. Oh, I think I picked that up, the PEDs. I think I posted about that on... oh yeah, I posted on Twitter. Yes, sorry, yeah, you're right. The thanks, Michael C. I remember I saw Michael earlier. Hello, Michael. Yeah, you're right. I said that, didn't I? I was the one who said that. Yes, the PEDs abandoned. Oh, it's almost its own story, isn't it? I posted it on Twitter. Very frustrating. Let's see. So, Talgo. Yeah, very interesting point. Talgo for a while were quite excited about doing stuff in the UK, and then they kind of bottled it. I'd be very interested to see what Talgo offered. But no obvious sign that they're going to bring a solution to the UK. But perhaps they might be interested off the back of this. Because the good thing about something like level boarding is that it, rather than quite the opposite of the fear from putting it in bids previously, was in invitations to tender previously, was that it would prejudice procurement law, blah blah blah. Actually, quite the opposite. By the fact that almost no one offers a level boarding solution other than Stadler, it actually shakes the market up a bit and makes it a bit fairer. So. Interesting one. Let us do some myth busting, because there's a few myths that come through, and I kind of want to pick a few of them up. So one of the first ones is that before one that comes up quite. These are in no particular order. One that comes up quite regularly, and if you can think of other level boarding myths, drop them in here, by the way, because it's always fun to add new ones to the list. But one of the key ones that we often get is you can introduce level boarding trains until you fix the platforms. Very common myth. Absolute nonsense. Only in very rare situations will you have a platform that will be tight and high, if you want to use the lingo, that would foul the gauge and therefore cause a problem for level boarding for low floor trains. The good thing about low floor trains, the gap filler, is that they actually have more space down at platform level, because they don't have the permanent footstep. So they're actually more gauge friendly in that sense. The gap filler then shoots out and gives that, so it's a much tidier solution actually from a gauging perspective. In those rare situations where you do have that clash, where you have a high and a tight platform, for example, on where you've had electrification been done on the cheap and they've lowered the track, you might have a high and tight platform. Well, in that situation, the platform needs working on anyway. Even if you procured a normal train, that platform would need work. So that argument falls down flat. Next myth. I should have a dinger, shouldn't I? Wait a minute. Let's get the old dinger up. The next one, that providing level boarding will cause problems for freight clearance. That's also wait a minute, you know what? It's actually worth me waiting until the soundboard comes up, because you all want the soundboard. I want the soundboard. You want the soundboard. Let's go. Why didn't I have it booted up at the start? Because I'm a bundle of chaotic, staggering energy at the moment. It's all good. Wait a minute. Let me just make sure that there we go. There we go. Global parameters. Let's put this down to 40 so it's not too loud. Right. So, freight wagon clearance. No, freight wagon clearance is not a problem at all. Freight wagon clearance, if you're putting the platforms to standard offsets, any train in the UK that is gauge cleared to pass anywhere will be safe to pass that platform. Any train at all. If it's not, it's an out of gauge train and it would have to have its own process anyway. But if you're setting the platforms to the correct position, you can achieve level boarding on any radius of platform down to about 360 meters, which is extremely tight, by the way. Anything above the radius of 360 meters, so that's most of the network, like most of the network, 98% or 99% of platforms, you can achieve level boarding, and also all freight can pass it. All combinations of freight can pass. That's just not a problem. Another one is, what is it? You can't... there's because you have different trains, different stopping positions, different types of train that you can't actually level boarding. That's a nope, because level boarding the whole point of level boarding is you have a standard platform position, which means that any train, it doesn't matter what types of train, they're all different types of train, will be using a standard platform position. An interesting sort of side myth about this was in the response to the suggestion that why LNER couldn't procure level boarding trains. The answer came back, well, because, our platforms are in so many different places, among other things. And of course, that is not true, because every single LNER platform has just been corrected for the IETs. So nope, all those platforms are really rather correct. And this is certainly true in Scotland, where the majority of platforms have actually been corrected to the standard position. You're bearing in mind the majority of platforms are in electrified areas. Actually, it doesn't take much to basically get on top of the platform question. And there are always problem platforms that are extremely low. They can be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. Ideally, you'd have a rolling program which deals with those tricky platforms and some of the easy ones and works its way around the country or around a given region and solves the problem. But that's a problem that should just have a funding pot to be solved, and it shouldn't be, AFA should not be its own thing, level boarding shouldn't be its own thing. Those are two things that should have a big pool of money, and you should be doing all of that work, and not saying, well, this is how much money we have. No, you just say, we will keep doing this every year. This is our annual budget, and we'll deliver as much as we can within that annual budget, and that annual budget will stay in place, inflated every year as required, until we've solved the problem. What's another one that's fun? This can't be delivered on curved platforms. No, that's absolutely not true. It can be delivered on curved platforms, as I say, down to the radius of 360 meters. So that's very, very tight. Gap fillers are the way that you solve that problem. And you can see those gap fillers in action on the Stadler trains. But those are, the gap filler is a little thing that goes choop, when the train is actually stopped. What's another one? This can't be done on high-speed trains. Stadler have built a long-distance fast train, and yes, that thing is limited to 100 and whatever miles an hour. It shows that you can absolutely deliver a level boarding solution on fast trains. It's absolutely achievable. Suggestions to the contrary is daft. It can't be done on diesel trains. Wrong. Stadler's 755s, the regional ones. I might be getting the 745s and 755s confused. But Greater Anglia's regional trains that currently are running now, for example, to stations like Great Yarmouth, they have a thunderbox. No, that's not right. That's a toilet in Australia. They have a thrash box. The little funny box on wheels that gives them diesel power, and they achieve level boarding. So, no, it can be done. I'm not saying that's always the way you do it, but it shows that it can be done. An interesting one that I've had raised by someone else I've clashed with on safety matters, suggesting that he doesn't understand risk at all, is on the fact that actually if you provide level boarding, it's less safe than if you have a step, because people don't notice the little tiny gap and they might fall over. Utter gibberish. What? Just complete nonsense. And extremely, extremely exclusive on who is travelling. It's just utter rubbish. The other one, the only way that you can get level boarding is by raising platforms. No. If you're raising platforms because the platform is low and you're raising it to the correct position, well, yes, that is actually correct. Yes. But if you are talking about raising the platform to meet existing train steps, that's an enormous, because that means that you're raising the platform into a position where it absolutely will clash with freight and impact the gauge, which is why Crossrail and Thameslink solutions were such a calamity, and HS2s as well, were such a calamity, because actually what they did was prevent level boarding from ever being achieved on those two systems without major reconstruction in the central section. Actually, for Thameslink, it's not so hard. You just get rid of the little hump. But for Crossrail, where the entire platform has been set very high in the central section tunnels, that is going to be very, very expensive to fix. And I think, you know what? I think that's a sufficient volume of myth busting that we've done there. So, good question from Microna above. Right, I was going to say let's go through some of these questions. So let's see. Raphael Nicolaus is saying Talgo low floor trains being introduced in Germany with the ICL and Denmark, and Flixtrain. Germany ordered them too. Let's see if they actually take them indeed. What about curved platforms like Newcastle? I think, Ryan, we've covered that one. Let's see. Right, Microna. So, just joined, so this might have been answered already, but why do British loading gauges have an overhang at like 1,000 millimeters height, below which width is reduced to begin with? Well, it's really about how our loading gauge kind of grew, really. So we had stuff that was like bridges, for example, which we knew that we had center girders and all sorts of things that were up to a certain height of around about 1,000 to 1,100. So actually, specifically, it's still that 1,100. That's lower sector. But about to that height, that meant that, and for a very long time, so whatever it would have been, a yard or something that we had structure heights up to, that trains were generally above that. They were kind of narrow and we didn't have to worry about it. But so at the bottom, that was the main limiting factor, and so that was that's why trains have that shape. But as we then realised, well, okay, what space do we have above? Well, we've got a little bit more. Can we start hogging some of that to make the passenger cabin a bit wider and get wider freight? And so the reason it balloons out from that point is because of the fact that you have you've got the tumble down shape as well, and then you've got that narrower bit in lower sector, but the upper sector bulges out to make the most of the space that we actually have. Well, the actual infrastructure space that we have, the loading gauge on our railway. So that's kind of why it does that funny bulge, is to the fact that we've got lots of stuff, not just platforms, but also center girders of bridges and things that are very narrow and close to the infrastructure at kind of the width of the bogies. But we don't have those restrictions higher up, so the train gets a little bit fatter around there, and that allows us to fit those, the seats in and things. That's kind of why that is that shape. It's a good question. Thanks, Microna. Very, very good question. Rafael Nicolas Tagos train is currently being rolled out in Germany, 230 kilometers an hour. Of course, in mainland Europe, it's a little bit different because they do have a lot larger loading gauge, so they can put equipment above the train, on the top of the train that we can't. So that's why the question's a little bit different in the UK as to what we can, or GB, what we can achieve because of our restrictive loading gauge. But yeah, so Michael C. The platform at North Road Station today was ridiculously low, so that would definitely need to be raised. But as you point out, this should be done as a rolling program. Yes, Michael C. Absolutely. Oh. So, how have I managed to make this green bit as wide as it is? Let's just understand what's going on here. Let's just let's get rid of that. Fine, and then position this to here. Lovely. That should have fixed that problem. There we go. Sorry about that. A little sliver of green sneaking in. For me, the ScotRail order is the key moment that's really exciting in us actually seeing. We've gone over the hill on this. The train was always going to be the difficult battle. Getting the rolling program of platform upgrades is desperately necessary. But we can also, meanwhile, be achieving that kind of through stealth anyway. So, but if we procure trains that have high floors, we're locking in the problem for another generation. So this is why I say the campaign for level boarding and its supporters have won. We've won this battle. We've won it. And everyone involved should be bloody proud of themselves. It's fantastic. Now, why am I doing this episode today? Well, a variety of reasons, news things, but also because I've mentioned Richard before, but Richard Am has worked with me to deliver a zine, as it were, an online zine which you can download through the Disability Action Research Collective, which does a whole load of really tremendous sorts of data-led, sort of interesting little, written by lots of different people. You can access, links are in the description. Lots of different zines on disability lots of stories on disability which are really interesting. But one of the key zines done is about level boarding. It's about level boarding, and so it's a really nice. I inputted in provided support for the first one, and it's being updated now, which is exciting. So hopefully this has covered a few interesting things for you to update in the zine, Richard. Fingers crossed. We'll see. I think it's well worth going and picking that up and having a good little look. I think it's high time we did a little bit of the old news, I reckon. But before I do that, I'll just pick up any other discussion going on. Rafael Nicolas, ScotRail government railways started to implement level boarding trains. How probable will the UK government follow suit for England? Low probability. But I think GBR will find it extremely difficult for its next order of trains to not be low floored. The challenge we might have is in the open access bids. I suspect they will just go for lazy Hitachi IET derivatives, which will continue to not be low floored. They will continue to be high floor trains. So we've not won the battle. We've won the battle. The war continues, but I think this is a really important moment to just take stock, because that ScotRail fleet procurement is an absolute linchpin in making that case for what the future needs to look like for train procurement. And I think it allows us to be like, why are you procuring? They've taken that jump to go, will procure level boarding low-floor trains. The next one to look very closely at is the big Northern Fleet order, which is coming. I don't think the ITT is out for that. That's the next one to check, and it should have similar wording. So it's a really, really key one to check and keep a very close eye on. So eyes on that. Now, a bit of something different before we press on. Andrew Gilligan has done it again. That's right. He has reheated his anti-high-speed rail bag of turds into yet another big PDF to, in this time, court reform with. In this case, Richard Tice is the person writing the forward on this. Now, I'll offer some insights into this, which is they've been inviting me, well, a couple of things, firstly. They've been inviting me to attend events related to this. And also someone somewhere mighty powerful has been trying to get me to, who's writing this and doing some stuff at Euston, trying to loop me in because he hates Hendy for very different reasons, I'd imagine, to the reason that Hendy and I have a slightly different interesting relationship. He's trying to twist me into using that to sit with people like Gilligan and Tice and legitimise this dross. And I won't do it. Sorry, but I ain't meeting you to talk about anything that involves any kind of anti-high-speed thing, because me turning up legitimizes your rubbish. Even if I stood there and shouted at all of you, which would have been quite fun to do at the parliamentary event, which was happening today, actually. Even if I had... Oh, no, it wasn't. It's happening later this month. Anyway, even if I had come to the event and just shouted at you all, you would have said that it was... the fact that I was there meant that you were having an open debate and it legitimizes your work. So no, the better thing for me to do is not turn up and to shout at you as being idiots from here, Railnatter. Yeah, we will be more on the actual report later, but this is the usual Gilligan rubbish, and it's made Burnham very angry.
From the bottom up, a coalition of people to build the next Liverpool-Manchester Railway 200 years after the first one, that they just try and sort of break all of that apart. Who do they think they are? We are trying to move our region forward. Greater Manchester and the Liverpool City region now growing faster than the UK economy, and they just come along and think they can just tear it all up. Well, they've got another thing coming, because we know if we get the right infrastructure, the growth will keep coming to the northwest, and we're not going to let Reform UK, with their London-centric approach, break all of that up.
I'll be picking through the report in some detail in the bonus episode tonight, by the way, because we're going to look through it and see how much shite we can find. So that should be a lot of fun. One of the things I want to pick up there with Burnham, a couple of interesting things. Firstly, he angry, and that's good. I'm very pleased. Second thing, the Labour government is doing what Reform are doing anyway, because the Labour government continued to prevaricate on what that new railway is going to be. We have no details on it. They said they were going to release details. They haven't yet. So actually, Labour and the government are London-centrically stopping Manchester and Liverpool and, frankly, the rest of the north having what they actually need. It'd be nice if Burnham also fought them too, but anyway. So yeah, an interesting one, that. But Gilligan, if anyone who's like, oh, well, what's in there, don't treat it with any respect. It's just Gilligan saying the same stuff he's been saying forever, which is, I don't like high-speed rail because I don't understand it, and because the people who pay me are paying me to say that I don't like it and I think it's bad. Remember, Policy Exchange, extremely shadily funded bunch of nasties, so don't pay them any heed. Now, that is quite enough of me yakking. Oh, look, I'm behind the text. Hello, look, it's my forehead. Hi. Let's get rid of that. So, I am in this week's Green New Deal podcast. So if you're interested in that, go and have a listen to that. That should be good fun. Talk about rail nationalisation, talk a little bit about Burnham and Manchester, talk about Zach, and a little bit of detail about what that win for the Green Party means. It's all good fun. How long is that? 59 minutes, 43 seconds. How on earth did I manage to keep it to less than an hour? Spectacular. Yes, that's definitely one to go and listen to. That should be a lot of fun. And next week, it's a kind of a double bill, because we'll be going through the NCAT, the National Centre for Accessible Transport report, and picking out some of the highlights and understanding what the implications are for transport policy at large. But this is not just a rail document, it is a transport document, which is a good thing, because that's what we want to be thinking about on this front. I said nasties, not Nazis, but it's you might be forgiven for using either word, Raphael. No, they're not Nazis. They're nasty little losers without any knowledge or care about the future. On which point, everyone, bit of a short one tonight. but that's because I'm absolutely knackered and exhausted and need to check if my poorly toddler is my poorly toddler is doing all right. So I gotta head off. But next week it's kind of a double accessibility bill really with 275, 276. So I will see you next week, and I'll see all the Patreon people for the bonus, which I'm going to be going in and setting up on YouTube right away. In any case, everyone, thanks so much for joining. I will see you next time. Cheerio, cheerio.